Sonic the Hedgehog got its first splash on the video game scene in 1991's Rad Mobile. Your little keychain. But for as much as Sonic is known for being an icon of console gaming on the Sega Genesis, Sonic has enjoyed some pretty comfortable success in the world of arcade gaming. Since the character's inception, Sonic has always had an arcade release, especially in Japan, but a lot of these releases fall by the wayside, so I decided to talk about every Sonic arcade game. I don't know how to make openers, I gotta get better at this. Starting with arguably the first Sonic game period, Flicky. While you might know about this game, you might not know that it was originally used in Japan as an arcade title by Sega AM1 and published by Billy Madway in 1984. This game was a pretty simple platform collector where you gather these chicks called chirps and then drop them off in the safe zone while avoiding the tiger, which will either make you lose a life or a chirp. It's a pretty simple, neat game and does work best as an arcade game, as the more you progress, the harder the levels get and the tighter AI gets. As for the actual look of the cabinet itself, it's also pretty fine. Basic, but fine. Overall, Flicky isn't a bad game. Not anything crazy special, but still a solid enough arcade game. Alright, now for an actual Sonic game. Waku Sonic Patrol Car was developed by Sega AM1 in December of 1991. This was essentially a kiddie ride where Sonic takes a daily patrol routine where the player has to avoid hitting other cars, stopping at crosswalks, and at the end of the game, defeat Dr. Eggman. It's a cute little fun game though, with the actual machine itself taking the whole ride to another level. This machine looks amazing, being fully decorated like a police car with the logo of the game on the hood, making this a pretty solid arcade game if you ask me. An actual canceled Sonic game though is SegaSonic Bros, which was a puzzle game for the Sega System C2, which was intended to release in 1992, but the game was canceled due to failing its location tests, and for a while, the game just kind of flew under the radar until recent times, and I see why. This would make a good mobile game and all, but this is just kind of whatever in my opinion. I'm not into puzzle games like this. Next up is UFO SegaSonic. You see, in Japan, instead of having claw machines like we do in the West, UFO catcher machines are typically more popular over there. So Sega AM4 made the UFO SegaSonic, which featured Sonic decor on the machine and even played music from Sonic 1. This machine could be filled with anything really, but back in the day, it primarily held a lot of merchandise from the SegaSonic line of items. It's a neat little machine though, looks really nice, and of course, holding the holy grail of classic Sonic merchandise does give it bonus points. Fucking popcorn. SegaSonic Popcorn Shop is a popcorn machine with a tiny Sonic minigame developed by Sega AM1 and Sega AM4. The minigame starts with you picking your flavor of popcorn where you help Sonic evade Eggman in order to prepare your popcorn by cranking a wheel. Yeah, that's it. It's pretty simple game-wise as it is just a popcorn machine, so I'm not going to be too harsh to the game, as it really is just a cute little add-on admittedly. The machine looks amazing though. I've always loved the look of this thing, and I would kill to have one in like my house. Even the popcorn buckets look adorable, like come on. This machine was even supposed to get a sequel of some sorts with SegaSonic Cotton Candy Scramble, which was a cotton candy dispenser. No one really knows why this thing was canned, especially since it was seemingly really far in its development, far enough to even get a patent and manual. Continuing on from Waku Sonic Patrol Car though is SegaSonic Cosmo Fighter. Think Waku Sonic Patrol Car, but space. Developed by Sega AM1 in April of 1993, this game follows Sonic trying to stop Eggman from capturing the animals from the space station. Well, I guess we can't get more descriptive than that. It's pretty much just a standard shoot 'em up game, akin to something like Galaga or Ikaruga, with 3 separate phases where you fight off Dr. Eggman's minions, Eggman and his basic Eggmobile, and Eggman and some dragon-esque robot. The cabinet also features a similar design motif to Waku Sonic Patrol Car with this neat little spacecraft with Sonic decor on it. Funnily enough though, this game didn't just see a release in Japan, this actually saw a release in Australia at Sega World Sydney, even getting an English dub with some questionable voice picks.
My name is Sonic. Dr. Robotnik is trying to capture our friends at the space station.
Who the fuck is this nigga, bro?
This was a solid conclusion to these type of games by AM1 though. I miss them as we continue on. Have you ever wanted to play Sonic 1 and 2 at your local arcade? No? Well, too bad you can. Sega would make an arcade version of Sonic 1 and 2 for Sega's Mega Play and Megatech arcade machines, with some pretty significant differences between both versions of the game. Starting with Sonic 1, the Mega Play version removes all cheat codes like the level select and debug mode. You only have 3 lives throughout the game, and collecting 1-ups just gives you 5,000 points. And if you run out of lives, you can gain continues by inserting a coin. The game also had only 4 zones, with Green Hill, Spring Yard, Starlight, Scrap Brain. And there are also no Chaos Emerald, instead obtaining the good ending by not dying once. The game also had a time limit for every zone, which if not beaten within the limit, the player loses a life and the time will reset. As for the Megatech version of the game, it's essentially the same, with the one real difference being the time limit, which can be extended by entering credits. As for Sonic 2, its Mega Play version is pretty much the same differences as Sonic 1. No cheat codes, no extra lives, instead the 1-up monitors have been replaced with 10 ring monitors, but the game does give you a single 1-up after 30,000 points, so good luck. No time limits this time around though, with the time around the HUD being completely removed, and all zones are included this time around. And you receive the good ending regardless of what happens to the player. I don't know why they made this. I get Sonic 1 and 2 were huge successes, but if you want to play Sonic 1 and 2, just go home. Unless you were too poor to afford a Genesis back in the day, which, you know what, I respect that, I get that. SegaSonic the Hedgehog by Sega AM3 is actually a really good game. This is one of the few games on this list that I've actually had the pleasure of playing on my own, and on actual hardware on top of that. The game pretty much follows Sonic, Mighty, and Ray trying to escape Eggman's Island, which consists of 7 levels. You play the game with a trackball and a button though, and it leads to a pretty unique feel for a Sonic game, that also making the Sonic game tough as balls. With relatively unruly control of the trackball and absolutely tough as hell level design, this can make for a pain in the ass of a game. Of course, this is an arcade game, and due to that, the game tries to get as many coins out of you as possible. But other than that, it's just a fun as hell game. Sure, it's madness, but you can find fun in the madness, and it's honestly a pretty fun time, especially if you play on actual hardware. Trust me, it will change your life. If you can't though, I do recommend you try to give the game a try on a trackpad. Fun fact though, this game was actually supposed to release on Sonic Jumps Collection back in 2005, but the trackball controls just didn't make the cut, which sucks because this is a really fun game that I think could benefit from a console release, but sadly, it never got through. Moving on to more Joy Palace attractions, we get Air Circus, which is kind of a basketball-esque game that features Rocky primarily. No Sonic branding, it's just Rocky with some honestly very adorable artwork, a really nice looking machine. And the same can be said for Curling Holiday, which is seemingly an air hockey-esque minigame featuring Pecky, with also some adorable artwork. Even the pucks have little Peckies, it's so fucking cute. I'm gonna be real, I don't know what this next game really is, so take certain info I spout with a grain of salt. Sonic No Space Tours is a prize game where you try to get Sonic to safely land on a planet by pressing buttons at the correct time, and you get 3 chances to do so. If you win, you can get a big prize, but if you lose, you get a small prize. The prize is seemingly whatever the arcade decides to stock, but it seems like they're either Gashapons keychains of Sonic and Amy's or little marbles. A neat redemption game though, nothing else to really say here. There's also the AWP Sonic game, which is a Sonic slot machine. Man, Sonic really was promoting gambling. Dart Shot is also a Dart Sonic game, and that's it. Another canned game on the list though is Sonic Ride, a ride developed by Sega AM3 that featured pre-rendered graphics of Sonic running through multiple environments. Well, this attraction never hit the press due to possibly not even being a game, more so a proof of concept. This clip did rise to prominence though after being included on the 1996 German album called Sonic the Hedgehog, which used footage from Sonic Ride for the music video They Call Me Sonic, and also being included in the theater for Sonic Jam. The animation of this thing is very clearly dated, but it's still a neat video, and I'll leave a link to it in the description if you're interested in checking it out. I promise this time I won't flake on you guys like I did with that one video. On to a more well-known arcade game though is Sonic the Fighters, released in 1996, with this being to this day the only Sonic fighting game. Developed by Sega AM2 after some Fighting Viper developer decided to add Sonic and Tails to the game.
Holy shit, he's dead!
Which got noticed by the head of AM2, who then sent the concept all the way to Yuji Naka, who approved. The actual game of Sonic the Fighters is built a lot off the engine of Fighting Vipers, and the story pretty much goes as follows. After a random swarm of robots appear on the island, Tails gets a video message from SBO explaining that the swarm of robots is actually coming from the Death Egg 2. So Sonic decides it's best to take Tails' single-seater rocket ship called the Lunar Fox. But in order to power it, Sonic needs to collect the 8 Yes, 8 Chaos Emeralds, which are spread out amongst Sonic's friends, with one of them being stolen by Fang. So now Sonic must beat up all his friends in order to collect the Chaos Emeralds, I guess. With Knuckles, the game does actually give a proper reasoning, as it basically just being egos clashing. But for the rest of them, it never explains why Sonic has to fight for the emeralds. Like, why is that? Yeah, though, Sonic the Fighters is one of the 3 games on this list that I've also had played due to mainly its ports. It got released on Sonic Gems Collection in 2005 and later released on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in 2012. The game itself, though, was actually really damn good and really well made, with single player mode being honestly kind of whatever due to the AI being asked. The game is quite in depth though, with so many moves and technique that would kill to be in a more multiplayer setting. This game also has a banging fucking soundtrack. Like, this cutscene song is a bop. This soundtrack is really good. I recommend you listen to it. Overall though, yeah, Sonic the Fighters is a really good game, and if you haven't played, I would recommend it immensely. Moving on to the later 90s though, in the 2000s, Sonic and Tails Spinner was a ticket redemption game where you spin the machine and wherever Sonic's finger lands is the number of how many tickets you would earn, with Tails possibly earning you a multiplier. Sadly though, in 2007, when coming to the US, the machine would remove Tails from the branding of the machine. Poor guy. SegaSonic was a Pachinko Sonic game which primarily used imagery from Sonic Adventure 2. This game even runs off of a Sega Dreamcast, which is some serious horsepower for what is basically just a slot machine. Sonic Hopper is a drop tower ride which was launched in the Sega Republic in Dubai. This is pretty self-explanatory, but it also spins like a corkscrew, which is pretty unique for a ride like this, I guess. And in 2012, Sega would add a section of Joy Polos that would feature primarily Sonic-themed games called Sonic Carnival, which featured a decent amount of attractions that I'll just group into this one section. Circle Shoot is another attraction which features basketball-like game where you press down on Eggman as a catapult with a foam hammer. Mogu Mogu Rush is a whack-a-mole game. What the fuck is going on here? Neo Target is a cannon game where you shoot small balls into bandit-themed holes, which after a certain amount of points allows the player to pick a prize. Oh, Ring is a game where you throw small balls into small slots. Balls. Originally, this game wasn't even ring-based though. Back in the 90s, it was originally called Koro Koro Fever, which just features some relatively basic Sonic aesthetics. In the 2010s, the Sonic Sports branding would get its start with Sonic Sports Basketball, which is honestly a really cool looking machine, even if it's just a generic basketball game with Sonic on it. In 2016, the cabinet would get rebranded to feature more modern artwork, which is every Sonic fan's 9/11. The Sonic Sports line would continue on later though with Air Hockey Table, which also seems to rebrand later in its lifespan. Later on though, the Sonic Sports Basketball game would see a release for smaller children with a machine that features a larger pit of balls and multiple hoops. That's it for the Sonic Sports games though. Maybe we will get more in the future as this branding is still around, when maybe something like Sonic Football or Sonic Soccer game. But as for now, that's pretty much it. And you can still find these things in the wild at most arcades, to this day, being sold directly from Sega Amusements. Just like its red-hatted competitor though, Sega and Sonic All-Stars Racing would actually see released on arcade cabinets in 2011. It's pretty neat, even if I'm not personally a fan of arcade racer games, I just prefer my joystick. Sonic Ghost Shooting would also launch in Joy Polos, which is a game where you can get in a cart and use light-up guns to shoot at ghosts on a projected screen. This game was kind of closed in 2016, which is kind of unfortunate. The same can sadly be said for Sonic Brain Working, which was a quiz game where 10 players could play, one of which would ask miscellaneous trivia questions, and whoever answered with the most efficiency and accuracy would win. Moving away from Japan though, and Joy Polis, in the UK we would get Sonic Dash Extreme, a modified version of Sonic Dash. There are some slight differences though. For one, your character seemingly is randomly chosen from Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, Blaze, Silver, Rouge, and Cream. You also earn more tickets depending on how many checkpoints you pass, and once you reach the end of them, the player also gets a rank based on how many tickets you've won and rings you collected, which is eventually followed by an Eggman boss fight akin to the mobile game. Sonic Blast Ball is a redemption game where you drop a ball through a machine to earn tickets, and if you hit the bonus zone, you can stop the bonus wheel to earn extra tickets. And the last two games would be Mario and Sonic 2016 and 2020 Olympic Games, both games getting arcade releases with slightly different games that involve more physical activity actually. Like, you really like the running one, you actually have to run, and that's it. Every single Sonic the Hedgehog arcade game I'm not gonna lie, it's seemingly a bit of a sad history. Starting in the 90s, the games felt like actual games, and if not, there was something that was unique, like popcorn or gacha games or something. But now, arcade games are not what they used to be. Of course, attractions are a part of this, but the franchise, we don't really get things like SegaSonic or Sonic the Fighters or Waku Sonic Patrol Car. This is seemingly due to arcades kind of being a dead medium in the modern day. Back then, arcades were still thriving and relatively profitable, but once home consoles got more and more popular, they kind of became what they are now, where you play games in order just to win big prizes at the cash counter, which kind of sucks. But the games we had, they're still great, and even if I'm not a huge fan of the more recent ones, it still fills me with a bit of joy seeing Sonic in my local Dave & Buster's or something like that. And hell, if you're lucky enough, you may even be able to find a Sonic Championship arcade machine at your local arcade, so hey, not that bad. I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.